I went and looked at these cars and test drove them with my friend when he was in the market. He ended up getting a GT350, but I did want to share a little bit about these cars and the experience I had test driving them. This was a really nice 2011 GT500 that was for sale in Las Vegas, and the dealership that was selling it was a really nice company, and they treated us very well and they were very good to work with. Unfortunately, my friend did not buy the car from them, but they were a good dealership. They were the Rebel Motorsports in Las Vegas. The car came from auction, and in the pictures it looked wonderful, but the closer you looked at it, you realized that it had been out in the sun a little bit. There were some fading pieces, and there were some noises and things. But what I was surprised about the car the most when we got there and looked was we opened the hood and it had a Whipple supercharger on it. Now, looking at the side of this Whipple, I would assume that the missing plaque on the side was the Ford Performance or the Ford Racing plaque that would have been there if this was a dealer installed blower, because some dealerships will install these parts out of the Ford Racing catalog, and that was my assumption. This supercharger had a little bit of bearing noise from what I could hear, and so I don't know how long it was on there, and it did look a little dirty, and the powder coating, the finish of the supercharger was pretty dirty and faded. But to me, that also meant that it had been there for a long time, and I assume that this car was a car that was driven around like this and daily driven. It was from California, and it had some things that were wrong with it. Like I said, the supercharger sounded like it had bearing noise. There was rear axle noise bearing that was pretty evident. Underneath the front control arm had been replaced, so I don't know if it was in some kind of an accident, but the front passenger side control arm was damaged and replaced, and the car was purchased at auction. The fading of the paint and things. For the 40,000 miles that were on the car, I compared it to my 43,000 mile Terminator, and my Terminator was in much better shape than this car. But we were able to take it on a nice test drive, and my friend ran it through the gears. I was able to do a really good pull through the gears through it, but it wasn't recorded. But this is us driving around with my friend behind the wheel. I couldn't tell what size blower this was. I was thinking it might be a 2.9, but here's the casting number that was on the top of the supercharger for anyone who might know what that is. But here's some runs.
Limiter.
So we took the car out to Las Vegas Motor Speedway where we could get out and look around the car, walk around it with some space in the sunlight and look it over. And that's when we noticed it had some fading and some things. For the price and the mileage, it really wasn't as nice of a car as what he was looking for. But here's a little walk around. It was fun to drive the car around.
Yeah, the blower is kind of old. I mean,
so my friend ultimately turned this car down. It was just not as nice as what he was looking for, especially with the money he was spending, and he ended up with a 6,000 mile GT350 instead. But speaking of 6,000 mile car, this was the other car we went and drove. It was a 6,000 mile Roush RS3. We went and looked at this car a few times, and I was able to drive it and run it through the gears, and I liked this car. I do like the 2.3 liter Ford Racing supercharger, or it's the same thing as the TVS, the VMP blower. It's the Roush charger. It's basically the same thing. 2.3 liter. Nice combination with a Coyote. I was happy that it was a 6-speed car, but I do not like the MT82 transmission. There have been a lot of problems with the shift forks. There have been a lot of problems with the clutch. There's been a lot of things with the hydraulics issues on them. And so for that reason, I would rather have the GT350 that comes with the Tremec transmission and the 5.2 flat plane crank, 8250 RPM, awesome, hand-built engine. So there are pros and cons to all of these cars. Basically, we were looking at the GT500s for 11 and 12, We were looking at the Roush RS3s and we were looking at the GT350s, and they were all about the same price range. This car only had 6,000 miles on it. It was beautiful. It drove very nice. Even though I don't like the MT82 because of the issues it has, it drove very smooth. The hydraulic clutch was nice. The wheels are nice. All the Roush stuff on this car is really cool stuff. I like everything that Roush does to this car. The only thing is the price tag on it is so high when it's new that it's really difficult to justify spending that kind of money on a car. But when it's used, like this one was, with very low miles on it, then it becomes a pretty good bargain, because you could not buy a GT and pay to have everything done to this car that this has for the same price. So in this regard, it was an amazing deal. The only problem with this car, and the reason he did not buy this car, was because it was black. We just couldn't do the black.
Do you have another color? Another color? No, these are hard to get as it is. We only got black.
I don't know if I can do black, man. Yeah, I can't do
You
a
can't
black
do black after what you just did to the car?
Can't do a black car, man. I'm sorry.
After all this, you can't do black.
No, man. So
You
we'll
said
mark
you
your
were
stuff black
interested in the
before
car.
color.
What if we work on the price?
No, it's a black car, man. Can't do it.
Yes, sir.
So it was a really hard choice for my friend not to buy this car, because it was super low miles, it was nice, it was a real Roush, and I liked that the supercharger was installed by Roush, so you know it was done right. It was tuned by Roush. Everything was great on this car. It had so many nice things about it, but we just couldn't get around the color. That's just, I like it with the red stripes, that helps, but it just, a black car for him and for me is just both not what we're looking for. And so he really liked ruby red, and he was looking at a few GTs in ruby red that he almost bought as well. And I had remembered there's a lady in town that has a ruby red Roush RS3 2017 Mustang, and I was telling him maybe she'd be interested in selling it, because yeah, I know she's been driving it around a little bit. She was working in a place downtown where we'd see it, and I contacted her. I did find her out on the local Mustang Facebook page. I asked her about the car a little bit, told her this is what we were looking at, that the black one was, you know, 36,000, I think. They were going to give it to him for less, like 32, 33,000. So if she wanted to get out of that car and sell it, this would be a good time, because my friend's looking for that car, ruby red. And she said, oh, I might be interested in selling the car, but I don't have it with me right now. The car is, it's up with a broken supercharger belt on it. And I was like, really? That sounds kind of odd. And so I started looking through her Facebook pictures, and I came across this. She had a post that said, I guess Mustangs can fly. I drove this off a 40-foot embankment. That's what she had said on her post. So I couldn't believe it. I was like, holy cow. She totally destroyed this one, and I think they're getting it put back together, but she didn't tell us that she had wrecked the car, and maybe she wasn't going to be interested in selling it anyway. Maybe she was just sad about it and just not going to tell us, or not really interested, and that's fine. But I was glad I found those pictures, because now if she did contact us, we can tell her that we know what happened to the car. So anyway, my friend did look, and he found another ruby red with white stripes that looked really good. But unfortunately, this car ended up being a scam. It was a dealership that was totally fake. I googled the address, and it was some like apartment building or something. It was like a little store, an outlet store is what it was, and there was no car lot there. And other people left reviews saying that they got scammed out of money with this. So unfortunately, this car didn't even exist. So this is the GT350 he bought. I have videos of this car on the channel if you want to watch those, but there were a lot of cars in the same price range. These GT500s, like this one I have a video about as well, and then there's this GT500 and this ruby red GT that I think had the California Special stuff on it. I don't think it was a real California Special, but it had a lot of things. Course exhaust, beautiful car, 20-30,000 miles on that one. And then the 6,000 mile Roush for not much more than that, and the other ruby red Roush that we talked about here in the video. And there were a couple of Shelbys that he looked at that were salvage title cars, and they had incredible histories, like this blue one that was completely destroyed and rebuilt, and there's another salvage title one that had the transmission explode and firewall damage on this car, and then there was the biohazard one that had blood all over the inside of it. So there were a lot of cars he considered, and we looked at a lot of cars. We spent a lot of time talking about it. It was a lot of fun. We were bouncing ideas back and forth, and the biggest thing was deciding what's the better car to buy: the Coyote with a supercharger, the GT500 from 11 to 12, or GT350. Those are all excellent choices, all in the same price range. So tell me, what do you think the best car would be, considering those options? Now, everybody's driving habits and desires are all going to be different. Some people want a track car, some people want straight line with a supercharger. So I think these are all really neat cars, and it was a hard choice. He kept asking me what I thought, and I'd give him my answers, but I was persuaded as well. So I just want to share my experience with these cars. I like them all. They all drove wonderful. The ones that we did drive, I was able to drive the Roush, the GT500, and the GT350, and they were all incredible cars. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. This was just a little bit of what I've been doing lately with my friend, and I just want to lay it all out here and share this media that I have.